This WV on the Dot episode is Highways and High Water. The June flood was indeed devastating, and people who live in the flood areas are desperately trying to get back to their normal life.
The West Virginia Division of Highways responded immediately, barricading roads and assessing damages, developing plans on getting roads opened as quickly as possible. First responders relied on the Highways Department to clear the roads so that they could respond to any emergency.
WV on the Dot, presenting a special episode, Highways and High Water.
First word I heard was probably from Chuck Runyon, who had boots on the ground, ready and willing and ready to go. But the rain just came so fast and so much of it. Things were really happening quickly early. So District 1 spoke with Aaron Gillispie, the district manager up there, and Travis Knighton, the maintenance engineer, and it just seemed like no time passed at all, and I was talking to Steve Coll and Jim Moore over in District 9. So what we had was a big arc. It just seemed like a big arc that ran from Kanawha County up through Glendenning, sweep through Nicholas County, sweep through White Sulphur Springs. It was devastating. Just so much rain so fast.
We started actually getting a notice 2 or 3 days out that we had a strong storm coming. We immediately started meeting with the National Weather Service, with Homeland Security and the National Guard. And we started preparing, and we also started sending out and getting notifications out to our people in transportation. Our DOH officials were aware that the storm was coming. None of us knew at the magnitude we were going to get it, and a lot of the folks knew that it was coming in their area, and they started getting prepared for it.
You know, prior to Thursday, of course, everybody was watching the weather. We knew weather was coming, and as most people didn't expect the magnitude of the storm that would arrive. We monitored the weather prior to Thursday, all Thursday, during the day, just watching the storm through the Weather Channel, different internet sites, and we're monitoring that what was coming. As Thursday evening approached, about quitting time, which is 4 o'clock, we had received quite a bit of rain, but had not received many reports of high water. That drastically changed about 4:30 in the evening when road closures started to happen. Our crews were out putting up the high water signs and assessing where we had high water and what was going on.
In my office, we knew that these storms were coming, and we'd been watching for a few days now, knowing that there was going to be an impact and there was probably going to be some devastation that was going to occur. So while our crews were out dealing with that devastation and putting up signage to keep people safe, we were just kind of waiting to react of what we could do to get the word out to the public and to the media of what was occurring. When things like this happen, no matter how much technology grows or how much social media there is, people always have their phones with them and they want to talk to somebody and they want to know immediately. So we were getting hundreds of calls. When you're dealing with people that may be stuck in their house or trying to get to their family, you're dealing with kind of people that are in a panic and are scared. So it's a stressful environment to work in when you have all of these calls coming in, and you also have people that are depending on you to provide them effective information.
Actually, most of the people were ready, on the ground, ready to go, and then it was just a matter of getting folks out there, getting signs up to stop people from getting in harm's way. Once I got involved was probably closer to the next morning when I started talking with the guys, seeing what they needed, equipment, manpower, materials, and that type of thing. We also got a call about from the governor's office about the mall up there at Elkview, And so Greg Bailey, state highway engineer, and went up there with me, and we assessed that in about half an hour. And on the way back, I was on the phone getting materials and manpower and passing the plan along to get those folks out of there. So happened pretty quickly.
District 1 has a little over 500 employees. All employees have been active in this situation, this flood. But we had, starting with our maintenance folks, we had 200 to 300 people working on this particular flood event. Our greatest resource is our people. There's no doubt about it. And in times like this, they shine. Even those that were affected by the flooding themselves personally. We had people here who lost their homes, lost their vehicles. They were trying to get to work to help out, many of which didn't even take a day off. So we have the best people in the world.
We're putting out road closures as soon as we got them in. We're putting pictures up, and then also tips. No matter how much we say it, every time we have a flooding situation, we always tell people not to drive through high water. And unfortunately, we had that happening a lot because in some places, the water was just coming up so high. And this was something that, not only the public, but our own people were dealing with. We couldn't get home. On Thursday night, we were here in the office until late into the night because when you are dealing with a flood situation in night, it's a lot different than during the daytime because people can't judge that water. So there were a lot of rescue incidents happening. And at that point on Thursday, we actually ran out of high water signs in some areas. So we were putting, flagger up ahead. So that was just kind of the dire situation. We were there at that point.
Thursday evening when I left work, I was basically couldn't get home, so I volunteered to help a county organization next to where I lived due to the flooding and high water. So I was given the task of following their road grader up Route 119 to Route 4 to clean slides and debris out of the road that had washed off the hill and stuff. Upon doing that, on Route 4, we was almost to Queen Shoals Bridge, and I get a call from my boss asking me to come back to Charleston and pick up a message board and take to I-79. They had water across 79. So in the process of turning around, coming to Charleston to get the message board, I actually ran into high water and where I couldn't get through and basically was stranded. One vehicle was already floating in the water. Another vehicle was trying to get through, which didn't make it. They ended up pushing that vehicle out of the water. Gentleman ended up getting stranded next to me. Where we was located, there was an abandoned house that sat above the road. And due to the rain and stuff, the steps from Route 4 up to the house had washed out. And I took blocks and tried to put back in the mud because he had advised me that he had 2 knee replacements and hip replacements, and he was going to have a difficult time getting up on the hill. So I took blocks and tried to stick back in the mud to make a step, so to speak, so he could try to get footing to get up the hill. And finally we was able to make it. And basically the next morning the water receded enough around our vehicles to where we could come back down to Route 4, but water was still over the road behind us and still over the road in front of us. And basically about, guessing the time, 5:30, 6:30 in the evening, the water had went down around the vehicles, but it was still over Route 4 behind us and in front of us to where, it was impassable. So we waited and waited, and later on that evening, I made the decision to wade the water out to try to get some help to him. And I waded water to my chest to get out. And a gentleman on the other side picked me up and took me into the town of Clendenin. And, I proceeded to try to get the man help from there. But he did call me later that evening and tell me he got out. He was safe and his brother was on his way to pick him up.
Basically, I would liken what we did in this flood event to triage. Trying to prioritize the greatest needs first. The way we did that is we had the public safety in mind, people who were stranded, their roadways or bridges had been washed out. How to get those people access was a top priority. The other thing that dictated whether it was a top priority or something we wanted to work on first was when we look at our transportation system, and we had an asset or a roadway that was very significant to the transportation of the people, and we were getting ready to lose it, or we felt like we didn't know if we were going to lose it or not. So that would have put us back into the first scenario, which was people would have been stranded. So those two things dictated what we worked on first, and we began to work on all those things in the northern part of Kanawha County and Clay County.
As soon as we realized what areas had been hit the hardest, I called Secretary Maddox and told him I was going to move some other assets from some of the other districts and counties in to help them. We started getting people prepared to move in to help them fix the roads. Of course, a lot of our roads were still underwater at the time, but we knew we had quite a bit of damage. So we started preparing to mobilize some of our crews, which some of our crews did mobilize down to District 9 and to District 1. We had great response from our highway people who, when they asked for help, was ready to go and stay a week, 2 weeks, whatever it might. It just like the whole state come together because they realized how devastating this flood was.
Managed to gather up trucks from as far away as District 5 up toward Martinsburg, Burlington area, District 4, District 3, District 10 rose way above and beyond the call of duty. District 10 had boots on the ground in Nicholas County, Fayette County, Greenbrier County. Jim Moore made the call from District 9 over there to District 10, and they were on the ground there. We not only sent manpower and equipment, we sent supervision with them to free up those guys over there to keep the assessments going. As you notice, the cost kind of escalated as we went, and a lot of that was because it's so widespread, and it took time to actually get the message from the field to our folks tracking this stuff. So it's been a unique storm, but they all are. They all are.
We had employees that that live in the area, of course, and suffered damage as well to their property, from varying levels to maybe a flooded basement to most people saw the video of the home on fire that floated down the Howard's Creek and eventually went under our bridge. It's my understanding that home was owned by one of our employees. So there's somebody that has lost everything. Some employees have lost family members due to the events of this storm. So we've got a lot of good people out there, a lot of dedicated employees that have lost as part of the storm, but are still involved in the recovery process, not only on a personal level, but on a level with what we're doing as far as the highway department.
Randy, what an amazing backstory and really a lay of the land of what was happening the day of the flood. As a matter of fact, we're sitting on what many people view as ground zero of the flood.
Yeah, we're located just off Route 4 in the Queen Shoals area, and this entire road was completely underwater. Well, coming up after the break, we'll see some of that reconstruction here on WV on the Dot. You're watching WV on the Dot, Highways and High Water.
In the first part, you got a great look at what DOH was doing the day of the floods. We're now going to turn our attention to how the Division of Highways responded.
Some of the activities that we got involved in early on, as far as putting up the high water signs, was we had crews out that had been performing routine maintenance that day, and they actually kind of got caught in the flood waters and were having difficulty getting back to our garage. I had 2 operators in 2 different areas near the White Sulphur area. One was in the Harts Run area in a grader. The other was stuck between Harts Run and White Sulphur Springs near the White Sulphur Springs Catholic Church. It's a place of higher elevation, and he was in a loader. Thursday evening, probably about 6:30, 7 o'clock, I had received some phone calls from the local state police and sheriff's department as far as assistance with maybe getting some bigger equipment in due to people being stranded. What I didn't know was that the gentleman that was operating the grader was already providing that type of assistance and had, from what I understand, drove the grader into water that actually while he was operating the piece of equipment, it was around knee to waist level. And him and another gentleman were helping the local police rescue some people from some stranded vehicles.
Well, we got a call to go up Neola. There was a pipe stopped up there, and water was going in somebody's house. Well, when we got up there, 92 was shut down, up there at Young Store. So we turned around, got back down to White Sulphur, and the times we got down there, I mean, you couldn't see none of the road. And the grader was sitting over up there right there at the, what they call a shell bank, right there on 92. So I jumped in it, another boy jumped in the loader behind me, and we tied the crew cab to the back of the loader with a chain. So we drug him down there to the Green Bar Hotel to get him up out of water, and then started on down through there. And then that's when we run into the other people. And, well, I dropped them off there at the Green Bar, and they wouldn't go no further, so I took off on down through there. I was standing up, and it was right at my waist. Just pulled up beside the vehicles and was pulling them up in the vehicles with us. And then we got down there and propane ball was bouncing off the grader, and then there was another young boy and girl was trapped on top of a vehicle right there in Hart's Run. And there was about 4 or 5 of us, and all finally got them two off the top of the vehicle. And then Will Nestor's come over and needed me to go back into the water again. So I had to go back all the way through it all, and that's where the 72-year-old man was trapped in the forks of a tree. And Will Nestor was on the grader with me. He threw on a life jacket, tied a rope off to the grader, bailed off the grader, and swam over to him, got him out of the forks of the tree. And then I seen a light in behind the pine trees, and it was a boy's cell phone. His cell phone survived through all that, and he was flickering his light from his cell phone. And Will dove back off and went back over and got him. And then there was another man hung on the fence on the other side of the road, and it was just a mess.
You know, our employees were out there. Unfortunately, with the timing of the event, a lot of our employees couldn't get home. Had a storekeeper at the local county garage that spent the night at our county garage, knowing her home was surrounded by water, knowing that her children and grandchildren were in the area of massive flooding in White Sulphur Springs, and she had no report of their well-being at that time. Thank goodness they were safe. But that was a pretty high stress evening for her, and she was right there answering the phone, assisting with the work we were doing. So we got a lot of good employees out there. A lot of them were affected by the high water and have damage of their own. They still showed up, worked on the roadways, and then dealt with their issues as well when they got home.
My district wasn't affected with this event. However, in these kind of events, it's a scramble in the beginning to get people and equipment and resources to where they need to be to address any situations you might have. The first thing to do is assess what needs to be done. Not having damage myself for our district, the first thing that I did was contact other organizations to find out if there was any place that we could help, and get out and look at some sites and help try to help make assessments. That's the first big issue, is to make assessments of what you have, and then it becomes a matter of logistics and being able to get your resources where you need them and manage those resources to get the work done once you're on the ground.
Thursday afternoon, Aaron Gillispie, the district engineer here in District 1, called me on my cell phone and said that we had people stranded at the Crossings Mall in Hellview. And Secretary Maddox wanted to get a road from the parking lot at Crossings Mall down to where we could get access on Little Sandy. So contact was made with the property owners at 84 Lumber and the Crossings Mall to give highways permission to push a road in to get the stranded people from the mall out. So we had one of our heavy maintenance crews working on a rock slide on Frame Road, which was a result from the flooding. And they finished that job up, and immediately we moved in on the road to the mall. So we moved equipment in, an excavator, and we rented a bulldozer, and the heavy maintenance guys, I just can't say enough about them. They stepped up in and went to work, and We got people out off the parking lot, I think starting about 9 o'clock that evening. So we moved in about 3 and started moving people out about 9 o'clock, shortly after 9. It wasn't any extravagant road by any means, but it did get the people off the hill, so job well done.
Early Friday morning, I believe around 2 o'clock, there were several barges that got loose and hit 2 of our primary structures in the Kanawha Valley. So it hit the Dunbar Bridge, then it went down and hit the Nitro St. Albans Bridge. We actually had the I-64 Interstate Bridge in Nitro closed for a while because we were afraid that those barges were going to go and hit that. So that was something totally different. While we're dealing with mudslides and trees down in high water, here we have some very important structures that carry a lot of traffic in the Kanawha Valley that were compromised by being hit by a loose barge. So we had a lot going on in a 12-hour period.
Once we started getting the reports and our damage assessments in early Friday, it was very obvious to myself and my engineering staff here that we had some major damage out there, and it would affect the recovery effort on a personal level for people living in the area, utility companies, and that we needed to take some really drastic measures and get outside help, be it from contractors, outside districts, whatever. We needed to come up with a plan and basically just get busy. We put that action plan together that day. Saturday morning, I was meeting a contractor in Caldwell, another area that was hit bad, where approximately, 800 feet of roadway was gone. Howard's Creek took it out. The US 60 was a creek at that time. We met there at 8 o'clock in the morning, let them know what we needed done, and those guys immediately went to work, and 6 days later, that section of road was opened. So just some things like that outside help. We had our forces were working on the on-ramp to I-64 there at White Sulphur, West Virginia 63, between Lewisburg and Alderson, was washed out. Had our forces along with another crew from an outside district there. We had that roadway opened in 7 days. Just a lot of people doing a lot of work. I can say that within a week, all our primary roads were open and functioning at some level.
We've relied on all our partners and every organization, from engineering to our environmental folks, all the districts. Even our own Secretary Maddox was out before daylight, waiting on the sun to come up so that he could inspect the St. Albans Bridge so we could get that interstate bridge back open. So the dedication of this DOH employees runs from the very top levels all the way down through the organization.
One day Chad Robinson and I were out in the evening helping some friends of his, and I was thinking, what can I do more to help the people of Clendenin and Clay area? And I figured that the inspection of their private bridges would be a need that they wouldn't be able to fill right off the hands of themselves or the DOH, because we're not really into the private bridge inspection section. So I offered up through Facebook a message to make public and people to share as many times as they'd like. My services as a bridge inspector, I figured my inspection would come in handy to help these citizens at least feel safe that their structure that they drive across to get to their homes is still safe. This is strictly on a volunteer time of myself. I do it in the evenings and I do it on the weekends. I've gotten responses from mainly Clendenin and Clay area, and I've gotten actually a couple responses out of White Sulphur Springs. I spent 4th of July in White Sulphur Springs looking at a few structures, but they were more real small private bridges just to a single home or so.
Every morning my staff, my immediate key engineering staff, we meet at 8 o'clock and would discuss what's needed, where we at with certain projects, where do we need to go, what equipment do we need, and it's just been a very positive experience. Coming out of those meetings, those guys go back to their departments, they know where they need to go, what they need to address, and it's kind of, it's worked like a well-oiled machine. It's been a positive experience, and the communication and what we've done with our staff, our crews, contractors, and outside crews has really shown what our agency can do in a time of need.
I have never seen in my career, my 28 years with highways and my 12 years in this position, the devastation we've had on our roadways. And the debris, our bridges, the roadways washed out. Something we've had a lot of floods in West Virginia, but nothing like this flood. Our crews came together like I've never seen them come together before. They worked, they never complained, they did what they had to do to get our roads together and get them fixed. And our crews deserve a tremendous applaud from the people of West Virginia because they've been out there doing way above the call of duty.
You know, Randy, what a great way to showcase the efforts of many, including the West Virginia Division of Highways. But standing here on what many people view as ground zero, just off of Route 4, you can't help but think of all the many lives and property and every other loss you can imagine during this devastating disaster.
So we hope you'll take an opportunity to salute those many men and women with the Division of Highways, the emergency personnel, and the thousands of volunteers that all showed up to help get us back on the road to recovery.
We'll see you next month on another edition
of WV on the Dot.